Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Good evening, horror fans. Welcome to another edition of the Weekly Horoscope. I'm your host, Jerry, here with my partner, Matt. Matt, this week, love is in the air. We usually spend a lot of time talking about death and blood and guts, but with Valentine's Day on the horizon, we're all love tonight, right?
Yeah, we'll certainly have an equal amount of both horror and romance in these upcoming movies that we're going to talk about. I like the romantic horror movies because they offer us a glimpse into the alternate reality of romantic comedies. You know, we had mentioned before that horror and comedy are celebrations of the absurd, and I think this genre is a perfect example of that. It really allows issues pertaining to relationships to be taken to the extreme and just have fun with it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in love. I believe love is the most powerful force in the universe, can move mountains and part seas.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, at times, love comes with its ugly cousins, such as possession, obsession, jealousy, and some of these movies may take us down those paths as well, where it's not really love.
No, yeah, it's some other kind of compulsion that's driving someone, or like you said, a great word, possessed. Because I like the idea that people can be possessed by ideas and thoughts, as well as like other forces in the universe.
Yeah, good point. Our first movie tonight is Audition from 1999, directed by Takashi Miike. And it starts with our main character, Shigeharu, who's in a hospital, and his wife passes away, and you see his young son come in with a gift, and a sad opening moment where he doesn't make it in time. He doesn't get to give his mother the gift. And then we jump forward 7 years, right? The son is now a teenager, and he's encouraging his father to go out and find love.
Yeah, they do a great job showing their relationship. They seem like they have a great father-son relationship. You know, he seems like a well put together kid. He's in a good mood. He's going on a date. He's positive. He's confident in his dad. You know, they seem to be like things are moving forward with their lives, even though they suffered that tragedy.
Yeah, and the challenge of being a single parent, and it's very little interaction. I agree with you. You make the analysis that he's done a good job with his son. Yeah. I saw the same thing you see. I agree completely. He's talking, Shigeharu is talking to his friend who runs a movie production company, and he's saying, I think I want to get back in there. And he wants to remarry. He goes right from not the dating, but it's right from nothing to remarry. Yeah. And I don't know if that's a cultural thing, but.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if that was either. But it doesn't seem like it's exactly the healthiest thing to do.
I would agree. Agree. They come up with this plot together that they're going to audition women for a movie, and while they're looking to actually fill the role of the movie, secretly they're looking for almost like an also-ran that they can take for a wife, that Shigeharu can take for a wife, and they talk about the women in a very misogynistic way. They talk about their traits, almost like it's like a pet show. You know, it's very off-putting.
It's very Harvey Weinsteinish. That's what it's like. You're going to audition and be my girlfriend, and we're gonna trick you into this. It was very like, wait a second, this isn't a good idea.
And in fact, Shigeharu was sitting at his desk at home reviewing stacks of applications, with pictures and backgrounds, and there's a photo of his dead wife on the desk, and he turns the picture around, almost acknowledging that what
he knows
they're doing
it's
is shameful.
Yeah. I mean, he even kind of admits it. Like at first he's kind of like, he's not fully on board with the idea, but his friend talks him into it. He's like, no, we're going to get funding for this movie. We're actually going to make a movie. It's fine. We're just kind of taking advantage of the situation. And he's like, I don't know. But he willingly goes along for it the whole time. So
he sure does. They begin interviewing, and Shigeharu is intrigued with one particular candidate. She's a former ballet dancer, according to her application, named Asami Yamakaze. And Shigeharu's friend finds her very suspicious. He said, there's just something about her. And afterwards, they say none of her references check out. All the people she listed are missing. But Shiguharu is too intrigued. He decides he wants to pursue it, and he goes on a date with her.
Yeah, he says he gives me. He's like, listen, I auditioned for a lot of the stuff in my career. It's kind of what I do, and I got a bad feeling about this person. Stay away from her.
Yeah,
he's like, I'm an adult. I'm fine. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, very, very foreshadowed by the friend there. And on the first date, he asks for a second date, and he goes and tells his friend she's the one. And we cut to a very the first really disturbing scene if you can get past the misogyny and the whole premise. But
the predatory part of it, right?
Yeah, we see her in her apartment, a dingy, unkempt apartment, and it's just her with her head dropped down into her chest, almost at an awkward angle.
This like Grudge type style look that like her hair is like straightened and goes down over her face, very demonic looking. Yeah,
and all there is a telephone and a burlap bag, and she's just, you get the impression she's just waiting for the phone to ring, and she doesn't move. She's just in this really weird position, and when the phone rings, the burlap bag rolls away.
Yeah.
And
like it's a jump scare. Yeah, it's your first jump scare of the movie. Yeah.
What the heck is going on here? And he ends up inviting her to go away on the weekend. And after 2 dates, he's taking her away for the weekend, and he plans on proposing. And she gets undressed and gets into bed and shows him all of her scars. She's got a couple burns on her leg, and it's clear she had kind of a rough upbringing to some degree.
Some kind of abuse occurred when she was younger. Yeah.
But now she's in bed, naked, showing herself to him, and says, "Love me and no one else." And that's her quote. And he agrees, foolishly.
Yeah.
And they do make love.
Yeah.
And when he awakens,
it's like signing that deal with the devil right there.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, yeah.
Love me and no one else. Like, there's a lot of love in this world, and a lot of different kinds. She meant it literally.
Yeah.
He awakens, and she is gone and not answering his phone calls. Strange. So he starts tracking her through the information on her application. He goes to the ballet studio where she trained, and it's boarded up.
Yep.
But he breaks in, and inside he finds a man, and we see a flashback showing this was the man that actually burned her legs, and he has no feet. He's walking around on prosthetic.
He's in a wheelchair. Yeah, he's in a wheelchair, and then he wheels up to him, and then he goes to stand up, and they show the feet his feet were sawed off.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. Another surreal image, which Takashi's known for in his movies. So he goes to the bar that she said she used to work at. Bar's shut down, and the neighbor happens to be coming out at the same time and tells him the bar has been closed down. The owner was murdered and cut into pieces. And which is okay, that's strange. But the neighbor tells him that they found 3 extra fingers, an extra ear, and a tongue that
which
didn't
is extremely
belong
strange.
to the pieces.
Right. Yeah.
It's like somebody put parts of one puzzle into another.
Someone had
puzzle.
a bucket of parts and they just dumped them over.
Yeah. You got like a 510 piece puzzle instead of a 500 piece puzzle.
So there's a lot of weird insinuations going on at this point in the movie.
Yes. But Shiguharu isn't taking the red flags. He still is pursuing finding the woman.
Right.
Which
even after his friend told him that all of her references were dead ends, he physically checks to find out they're dead ends, and he's like, I don't know, she's still kind of cute though. I guess. Talk about in the beginning, it's from the vantage point of the misogyny, but it really turns into a different viewpoint with just dumb man. Just desperate. He's desperately clinging to his false ideals. Good
way of saying it. Meanwhile, Asami breaks into Shiguharu's house, and he sees the picture of the dead wife, and she puts drugs into his whiskey decanter that he seems to draw from every night, and she waits for him to come home, and he comes home and drinks it, and sure enough, he collapses, and this is where we go into and it's tough because we've heard some facts. What he goes into is a cross between flashbacks and hallucinations. His mind starts filling in gaps in stories he heard, and we see some things that we believe are probably true.
Yep.
And then others are just wild hallucinations. His mind is gone. He's in all different world. He sees the bag from her apartment. And this is one of the true parts because he knows nothing about the bag in the apartment.
Right.
A man climbs out with no feet, missing fingers and a tongue. So this must be the source of our extra parts.
He's crawling like a dog. Yeah.
Yes. And he's moving, he's waving him forward with just the one finger on his hand.
The palm comes up and it's one little finger. Yeah.
And it's just the creepiest, waving forward.
Yeah.
And even grosser, she goes and vomits in a dog dish and puts it down and to feed him, and he eats it hungrily. He just gets right in there.
Yeah. It's disgusting. And he doesn't even have a tongue. So he's kind of just like, the whole thing. The whole thing is visceral. It's a very visceral thing.
Bobbing for vomit.
Yeah.
He also, we see her kill the man from the studio with a wire saw. He's sitting at the piano and she just comes up from behind him.
Yep.
And beheads him with the wire saw. And finally we get away from the world of hallucinations and flashbacks, and Shigehiro comes to, and she's there. And she's got on, like a leather apron and gloves, and
kind of reminded me of like the Hostel outfits that they had on in the torture rooms.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very apparent she's about to get to work.
Yeah.
She injects him with a paralytic agent so he can feel everything but barely move.
Yeah. Which reminded me of The Serpent and the Rainbow. Do you remember that movie? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. This whole scene reminded me of that, and I was like, great. I know where this is going.
Yeah. Which is just a horrifying, knock me out, fine. But to be in between, to be in a state of total consciousness and feeling, but be paralyzed is
still feel pain. Yeah. That's hell.
Yeah. She opens a box of long needles and she starts just sticking them in his torso. And he's convulsing a little bit. He's thrashing a little bit, but he can't really move.
And she's describing what she's doing too. What with this sinister, girly grin. Like, this is the most painful part, and this is the second most painful part. And she's slowly doing it.
Yeah. And then she moves from the torso after he's a complete human pincushion. She moves up to the soft flesh under the eye. And I know how much you love your eye pokes. She doesn't actually poke him in the eye, though, so I don't know if this is okay for you or not.
It wasn't. I took a big gulp of beer watching this. I was like, man.
My favorite part that she's doing it, she's pushing it in, and she's got this sadistic, when she's going deeper, and just sounds crazed.
It does, yeah. This was a disturbing scene.
She threatens his son. She tells him, hey, you love your son, and you were only supposed to love me. And she calls him a liar. And so she gets out her trusty wire saw and she cuts off his left foot. And this is beautifully done because she is gleefully, like a mad puppeteer.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That's what I wrote down. She's just going side to side with this wire saw, and the blood's flying, and the glee on her face was just insane. And then she takes the bloody foot when it's disconnected and throws it against the glass door, and it splats and falls to the ground. Wow.
Yeah, that was a good shot. How they panned back and showed her throwing against the glass, and just
discards it completely irrelevant.
Gets ready to go on the next one. You can see her smiling. Yeah.
So left foot discarded. She grabs her trusty wire and is about to start in on the right foot when Shigeharu's son comes home, and she sneaks away and is sneaking up behind him with a can of mace. And you can just figure she's about to do all these things.
Yeah, she's taunting him with it, yeah.
Meanwhile, Shigeharu wakes up in bed back at the hotel that they went away for the weekend, and Asami's asleep beside him. Raising the question, is this just a bad dream? Did none of this after the hotel actually happen?
Right.
And she wakes up next to him and accepts his marriage proposal that he does not remember giving. And they both fall back asleep. and as the viewer, you're like, okay, what is reality here?
Yeah.
Which they like, Takashi loves to bend the what do you
Yeah,
what do
I
you
was
see?
wondering. I was like, is this some kind of like? Yeah, I was like, is this a dream? Is this a flashback to a point that they didn't show from earlier? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I was trying to like, is there some kind of puzzle here? Yeah.
Well, and then he wakes back up in reality as Asami's attacking his son. And his son runs up the stairs and she's chasing him up and he's on his back like a crab. And he manages to kick her hard right in the chest.
Yep.
And she falls down the stairs and snaps her neck.
Yeah, I thought it was a
And
little anticlimactic, to be honest.
agree.
Yeah.
It was very sudden and very like, okay, over and done with.
But
This isn't,
it also could have went the other way, like where they were chasing each other around the house for 40 minutes, like in some stupid scene. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, so it was kind of like it was over. That's kind of how it would end, right?
Yeah, and this isn't a supernatural tale. She's not Michael Myers where she just gets up and
Right.
walks away anyways.
Right.
So her neck is at a you can see it sticking out here where it snapped, but she's still hanging on. She has shallow breathing. Shigehiro tells his son to call the police, and Asami looks over at him, and they have he's on the ground, she's on the ground, but they have a line of sight. And she repeats what she said at their second date. She says that she was waiting for his call and was so happy to see him again. And it was just kind of a weird ending. Like she was, a strange character all along. What an odd thing to say in that moment.
Well, I think it's a way of taunting too. Like, that's just how sadistic she is. Like, she wasn't going to break that character. Like her that was her way of like being sadistic and just continually, even to her death, she's going to taunt him in that character.
Yeah. And this film, I'd seen this film before years ago, and it was great to revisit it. This film, I think, gets a bad rap. It is often cited as the lead into the torture porn era. You mentioned Hostel. Eli Roth had said that this film was an influence of his. And I think that's misjudging this a little bit. I think there's more depth and there's more going on here. It flips the damsel in distress, the final girl, all the horror tropes completely on its head. It starts out as a completely male chauvinistic perspective and turns to a powerful woman taking charge perspective. Not that she's sane or in the right, but there's more going on here than just a torture porn movie. In my movie,
there's a lot. I agree. There's a lot going on, and they spend a good hour developing these characters. There's a lot of dialogue that they're developing their relationships, kind of showing you like how the son is, how the father is, the father's friend. They're kind of giving you like a lot of good dynamic as far as like how they are, and you see that like with when the father and his friend are sitting at the bar, you can see their bitterness. They're having this conversation. They see a group of like 20-something, 30-something-year-old girls, and they're just like bitter and mad that they're happy.
Yeah.
Like they're older men. They're just bitter. They're predatory. They kind of, they're
take advantage of their position of power. Yeah.
Yeah.
But very good film, very deep film. Like I said, I think it gets a bit of a bad rap, but it's I originally saw it on a list of best horror movies of all time, and I hadn't seen it, so I saw I better check this out, and I'm definitely glad I did.
Yeah, me too.
Our
great
second
Valentine's. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say great Valentine's Day movie.
It's a perfect Valentine's Day movie. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm saying at the top of the stairs, so I shouldn't say that too loud because I end up at the bottom. Our second film is called The Loved Ones. It's a 2009 film directed by Sean Byrne. And it starts with our main character, Brent, and his father are driving down the road. And when suddenly in the road, there's just a bloody man standing there. And Brent's driving, and he swerves, hits a tree, and kills his father. Yeah. So that's how the movie opens. We don't know why there's a bloody man, where he came from. There's no explanation. And we jump forward 6 months, and Brent is a brooding, self-harm inflicting teenager. He wears a razor blade necklace that he hurts himself with. And we see him invited to the school dance by girl Lola. and he declines, saying, I'm going with my girlfriend Holly. And Lola, who looks a little miffed, and leaves.
Yeah.
We cut to Brent and Holly. They're in her car, and they're fooling around. And we cut to a creepy shot of Lola's face in the window, watching them with just a scowl on her face.
Yeah, just standing there, like just angry. Just she's clearly awkward. From the moment that you're introduced to her as a character, she just has that look. She gets a little too close to him. She's staring at him blankly. Not clearly doesn't even realize he has a girlfriend, or she does, and she doesn't care.
Doesn't care. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And her awkwardness grows in leaps and bounds as we move on here through this movie.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Brent gets into a fight with his mom about going to the dance with Holly because his mom's hesitant for another teenager driving, which he interprets as blaming him for, the death of his father and her husband.
You can clearly tell from that one small scene between them that neither of them have gotten over the trauma. She looks real pale skinned, like she hasn't left the house in a year. She's kind of just sitting there, like almost like teary eyed, trying to talk to him. He's kind of angry and bitter towards her. They're having this kind of rough conversation about throwing guilt back and forth about driving. Yeah. So they haven't dealt with the drama yet. Trauma.
Yeah, in 6 months, and I don't know what it takes. But you're right. They haven't come to grips with it and move forward in their lives in any way.
It'd take a lifetime.
So Brent takes off angrily. He goes with his dog, and he's climbing up this cliff, this small, cliff by his house. And at one point, he's hanging, and you can see him pondering letting go.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He continues to the top, and he's sitting there, and I think he's smoking something, and he's kind of chilling, trying to relax a little bit.
Trying to get some perspective on things. Had his little come to Jesus moment. He's like, "Oh crap, I almost died. I gotta, let me just chill out for a little bit."
Yeah. And then a man appears out of nowhere. We don't see the man. He knocks him out and stabs his dog, injures the dog at least.
Yeah.
So Holly arrives to pick him up, but the mother doesn't know where he is, and they can't find him anywhere. The dog shows up back at home, and he's got a bloody wound on his back, and now they're really worried.
Yeah.
And we cut to I found this scene crazy. The car's driving along, and it just stops, leans out the door, grabs a fresh roadkill, throws it into the passenger side of the car, and continues on. And okay, what?
Yeah, what's that going to be? I think it was Chekhov that said if there's a rifle in a play, he's like, if there's a rifle in the first act, it better be used in the third act, or you shouldn't show it. And so I thought of that when I saw the thing. I was like, what are they going to use this for?
Yeah. You'll find out. We'll all find out.
Yeah.
So the same vehicle pulls up to a house, and it's Lola and her father. The father was the guy who abducted him, and Lola comes out, and they're inspecting the knocked out Brent in the back, and it's quite apparent that this pair is completely loony.
Yeah. Just the look on their face. The cinematography in this movie is fantastic because they set up this. It almost reminded me of that table scene in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when they wake up and they're sitting around the table with everyone at dinner. Like they have that like sadistic vibe, but it's also like they also like contrast it with this like pink bubbly disco ball prom night look to it. Yeah, but they have hammers and knives, and they're gonna do it's weird. It's an interesting contrast.
It's so over the top at times. It's almost incredulous, but it leaves you riveted. At least I thought.
The girl did a great job looking crazy.
Oh, for sure, for sure. In fact, she goes inside and changes into her prom dress, or they call it the school dance, but what a prom.
That's what it is. Yeah.
She changes right in front of her dad, and he watches.
Yeah, awkwardly, like
very weird.
Yeah. There's a very strange relationship going on here.
Yeah, we're already thinking, okay, these people are loony, and it's just another layer of it. Like, okay, what the heck is going on here?
Right.
Brent awakens, and he's at a table with Lola and her family, and his chair is bolted to the floor, and he's tied to it. And it's Lola and the dad and her mother, which they call her Bright Eyes, and she is lobotomized and completely out of it. You can see a hole in the middle of her
hole
forehead.
in her head. Yeah.
And it's like, wow, imagine waking up to that scene.
Yeah.
And Lola takes and injects bleach into his vocal cords to prevent him from screaming, which I thought was just, I had not seen that. I had not heard of that as a thing.
Yeah, I thought that would just kill him immediately. But
yes. I don't know if that actually works, but it was fascinating that that's what they do. So you can't yell, scream, or in any way try to,
because for the rest of the movie, when he does scream, it has a weird sound to it. Yeah, for sure. And then she leans in to get a pick, for the she goes right back to the bubbly mode. Yeah. And you're like, all right, this movie's insane.
This is her date.
Yeah.
She's tormenting him and doing all these things until he signals that he has to take a leak. And this was really uncomfortable.
Yes.
He says, yeah, I gotta, he signals that he's gotta take a leak.
Yeah.
And
he's like mumbling and drooling, and she's like, what's that? You have to do what?
Onesies or twosies?
Yeah.
She takes a glass jar and she undoes his pants and tells him, okay, go in the jar. And he's like, no. And she's, okay, go in the jar or daddy will nail your dick to the chair.
Yeah.
And she starts a countdown.
And if someone said that to me, I would have immediately just pissed my pants. So I would have been like, well, that's all you had to say.
Yeah, I don't know. That's awful scenario.
Yeah.
He finally does go, and she's like joyous for, making him subject himself to this humiliation.
Yeah.
But while she's, holding the jar, he manages to kick her on her back, and he gets out of the ties and escapes.
Yeah.
He runs outside and
starts hopping out. Yeah.
Which I thought was really dumb. He runs out the front door and hides under their car.
Well, I think he falls, right? And he starts rolling under there so he could, I don't know. Yeah. It happens real quick, but that's how I imagined it.
Yeah, it just seemed like you're gonna get as far away from here as possible,
right? Yeah, I think
and even though your vocal cords are infected, you're a young dude. Get on your hoofs and get going.
Well, he had to get the ties from his feet undone first. That's why I think he rolled under the car so we could do that. Yeah, but under the car, it's like what like that? I don't know. What if you get run over? What if he starts the car and just?
Yep. So sure enough, with him hiding under the car, the dad comes out and starts the car to go look for him.
Mm-hmm.
Backs up, and there he is sitting right in front of the headlights. So the dad chases him with the car, and Brent runs up a tree, and the car smashes into the tree, and they're kind of at a standoff.
Yeah.
And this kind of surprised me that they were able to do this so effectively. Lola comes out, and Lola and her dad stone him in the tree.
Yeah, they're throwing rocks at him.
Very, Shirley Jackson, the lottery-ish, just stoning him.
Yeah.
Until he falls out onto the hood of the car.
Yeah. And he plopped like he was dead. Like they didn't make a noise like or anything like that. Like you hit me, like he just like a dead body was boom, just comes and, like they knocked him out.
They got him.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. He comes to when he's back at the table, back in the chair, and this time they take long knives and they're hammering his feet into the floor. So rather than the chair be bolted down, he is now bolted down per se.
Yeah, it's pretty vicious. And at this point, you're kind of rooting for him. You want this guy to get out of there.
Yeah, for sure.
He's right back in.
Lola is yelling at him to cry when the hammering's going through his feet, but he won't. And he gets this scowl of determination on his face, and he won't cry. And he stops yelling, and he's just enduring the pain. And I found this very interesting because it was a character who was willing to put his life at risk and hang on the edge and wasn't sure he wanted to live. But you could see in this moment, he's now has a fresh determination to live and to make the most out of life. And I found that very cool. Made you want to root for him.
Yeah, you did. And like, I think you realized like all of the pain and suffering that he had endured with losing his dad and trying to deal with that guilt. And now it's like, you're not going to take this from me. Like like you're not going to be the one that puts me out. You know what I mean? Like it kind of like it sparks something in him,
Yeah, that resolve makes him somewhat heroic at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good word.
Lola is showing him a photo album of past victims, and she gets to, and I kind of love this synergy here. She gets and starts complaining about the one that got away. And this is the point where Brent realizes the one that got away was the bloody man standing in the road.
Yeah.
So the loss of his father and all this guilt and anguish is actually her fault to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great revelation, for the entire movie. I agree. Because you're like, oh, so she kind of tugged this. She's the result of all of this from the get-go.
Yeah.
And it was really like when she's flipping the book, you see these pictures. She's been doing this since she was like 5 or 6 or something like that. You see like a little picture of her as a little girl. I'm like, holy, like this is what the dad has been doing with her,
Yeah, I wonder at what point did they lobotomize the mother? Because maybe she didn't go along.
I don't know.
Yeah, just craziness.
Yep.
Lola carves a heart and her initials into his chest with a fork. Which
is what she does with everyone.
Yeah. And then almost like they're curing meat, they proceed to just throw salt on it. And the expression, rubbing salt into the wound.
Yeah. And there's
agonizing.
Yeah. And they say, we can't hear you when he's screaming. That's like they keep taunting him with that. Yeah.
So the creepy, pervy dad crowns Lola the queen of the dance. And they have a slow dance together. And they're looking at each other and their faces start to move in. And you're like, God damn, they're about to kiss. You really think it's going to happen?
Yeah.
Just as they're about to, there's noises coming from the trap door in the kitchen. And, there's a rattling and you're like, oh, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And so they go over and open it up. And here's your act of the gun from the first act.
Yes.
Throw the roadkill down the hole. And you see you hear, disgusting chomping, sucking, wet noises. Just
I thought they were like wolves down there or something.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like. Animals, attacking a carcass. That's exactly what it sounds like. Yeah. So the dad holds Brent so Mia can drill the hole in his head because it's his turn to be lobotomized.
Mm-hmm.
And a tea kettle whistles in the background, and they explain to him, we drill a hole, we pour the boiling water into your brain, and it cooks it.
Yeah, very Jeffrey Dahmerish, because that's what he did towards the end.
Okay, wow. So Mia does the drill, and she's struggling with it, but she gets the hole in there. But the hole's too small to effectively pour the water in. So,
and when she's doing it, you can see a little smoke coming up, like this little
yeah.
They added that in there.
Just brutal.
Vicious.
So, Daddy says, "Okay, I'll make the hole bigger. Like use the right size drill bit in the first place."
So we get another round of us watching this.
Yeah. You get to do it again. He's going to make the hole bigger so and pour the water in there. But so during this, Brent manages to break free, pulls the knife from his foot, and stabs the father repeatedly. Just totally goes to town on him.
Yep.
Lola
and
jumps
you're rooting
on
for
him.
him. You're like,
yeah, exactly. Like you get out of there before your brain is cooked.
Yeah.
Lola jumps on the back of him, and he managed to get her swung around, and he punches her, decks her.
Yeah.
And he pushes the stabbed dad, down the hole, and he stands over it. And now we get to see what's in the hole, and it's all the past victims, or at least a handful of them, naked, lobotomized, just completely animals at this point.
They look like from the descent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, they're in a dark hole, and
they've been there.
They start eating the dad. That's how they're fed. There's fresh flesh in the hole, meat. And they go.
Yeah.
Which I always thought, like, wow, like it just keeps reaching new levels of depravity.
Yes.
But while he's watching in complete shock and awe, Lola comes to and pushes him from behind. Now Brent's down in the hole, and she shuts the door. He manages to get a light, and of course, luckily they have a meat to be feeding on, but he's kind of getting his bearings in the corner. He gets a light
Yeah.
and he gets the hammer that the dad had, and manages to kill them all with the hammer.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Lola goes upstairs, and for some reason, at this point, with her dad being dead, she decides that she's going to smother her mother. So she pillow over the face for Bright Eyes,
Yeah.
and just gets her out of the picture.
She's like, well, since Dad's gone, I don't need you anymore. I never wanted you around anyway. So yeah. That was like immediately the first thing she thinks to do.
Yeah, which was weird, which just speaks to
how insane she is. Yeah.
Back at Brent's house, Holly remembers that Lola had asked Brent to the dance, and tells the police detective that maybe you want to check there. So the detective does. He arrives, and he breaks in, and he sees the carnage and all the blood, and he hears Brent can't yell because of his vocal cords, but he's throwing stuff at the trap door and draws the attention of the
you can hear a thump in the floor, and he starts to hear it. Yeah.
So the detective opens the door, and he sees Brent, and it's like, oh my God, he's finally going to be rescued.
Yep.
And Lola cleavers the detective right in the middle of the head, splits him right through the skull, and his body tumbles down into the opening.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, his one glimpse of hope there is gone.
Hope is gone. Yeah.
And Lola tells Brent that she is going to go kill his mom and to go kill his girlfriend. And she shuts the door. And this was a great, you mentioned the cinematography. I thought this was one of the most well shot scenes in the whole movie. Day breaks as Lola's walking through a field, and the sun is just coming up, just cascading her in light, and you see she's bloody, tattered, with a knife in her hand, and just walking through this field like on a mission.
Just has this ravenous, murderous look on her face.
Yeah, I just thought it was a beautifully shot scene. And then they move to her. Now she's just walking down the middle of the road. It's early morning in a suburban town.
Doesn't care if a car is going to drive by. Doesn't care if a cop's she's just insane. Yeah, in a pink dress, bloody, with a knife in the morning.
Yeah, and just crazed look on her face. It's just crazy. And of course, the car that comes by is Holly, who's driving, looking for Brent. And the notebook, the scrapbook that she had been showing, hits the windshield of Holly's car. And she stops. Lola opens the door, and she can see that she's wearing Brent's razor necklace. And Lola attacks Holly. And the two fight, and they're scuffling, and Holly takes off and tries to run away. Meanwhile, Brent has MacGyvered his situation in the cellar, and has stacked the dead bodies that accumulated into a human ladder to get himself out.
When I was watching the movie, that's actually what I thought. I was like, why don't you stack the bodies and try to jump up? And then he did. I was like, yeah.
Brilliant. So
because I was like, you figure you got to get at least 4 to 5 feet on that, like.
If you're ever trapped in a hole, I will be sure to throw you dead bodies to work with.
I'll figure something out.
He takes he gets out of the hole. He takes the cop car and is speeding towards home. He's going like, it's an Australian film, so it's kilometers, but he's going like 140 kilometers an hour. And he comes to the women in the road. Holly's running, and Lola's chasing her. And he manages to swerve around Holly, very, very reminiscent of his situation to open the movie.
Back to the original, correct, yeah.
But he comes back into the road. He doesn't crash, and he just pop. He just runs right over Lola. And it's like he hit her hard.
Yeah, he didn't slow down.
This has to be the end.
Yeah, done. Like her body, like she smashed into the windshield, went flying over.
Yeah, it hit her hard.
Yeah.
Holly gets into the car and sees it's Brent, and they're okay. And you hear this noise, and you see the body of Lola is with one hand sticking her knife into the road, and then pulling herself forward,
like
so
rock climbing.
Yeah, you keep hearing this, and then a scrape drag.
Yeah,
and they look in the rearview mirror, and she's arched back with her head up, like looking at them, dragging herself forward.
Yeah.
And Brent puts it in reverse, and you got to picture her like completely arched with her head looking up.
Yeah.
He backs up full speed and just snaps her head straight back.
They show like her head getting hit and just falling back. You know?
She's already at a impossible angle, and that, you know, how she wasn't decapitated, I don't know. Maybe she was. They don't show it, but you get the idea.
Her body was folded for sure.
Yeah, and then Brent and Holly go home, and that's the end of the movie.
It's the end of it. Yeah, he gets away.
Uh,
It's a love story, Jerry.
it's a love story, except it wanders off into that obsession and possessiveness and jealousy area that is just not.
Yeah, and very the Freudian nightmare of growing up in the Oedipal parent situation with the dad, the way he was, you know.
A perfect entry into Love Gone Bad.
Yes, absolutely.
I found this film to be disturbing on many levels. You mentioned the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The family dynamic that Lola and her father had was weird enough to qualify for that, certainly.
Yeah, very unsettling.
And you would like to think that through all this trauma, that, you know, maybe it gave Brent a new appreciation on life, and maybe he was able to move forward. You know, now his father's death wasn't a random accident. It was the product of vicious and sick people.
Right, and now there's some kind of closure to that.
Yeah. So they don't, you know, they just drive off. But you kind of hope for a happier ending for Brent and his family and his girlfriend, and you kind of, you know, there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel there. But I agree with what you
surprising
said
because I thought it was just going to be one of these things where it's just a nightmare for everyone. But yeah, he ends up getting away, which is good because you're rooting for him, because at the beginning of the movie they set it up where they're like, you know, here's this poor kid that like accidentally kills his dad. Like that in itself is an interesting premise.
Yeah.
You know, like we don't see that a lot in movies. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to start this. So he has to deal with that trauma. And then he goes through all this in the movie and, you know, gets lured into this, you know, horrible situation. And then you're rooting for him. And then there's the happiness. So it's pretty cool. It's a good movie.
Yeah. I agree with what you said earlier. The girl, the actress that played Lola, master class in crazy. She did a phenomenal job.
Phenomenal job. Yeah, just the way she did everything, little idiosyncrasies, the way she acted and looked and stuff. It was great. Between
her vocal inflections, her facial expressions, she like, you just, every time you watched her on screen, you're like, she's more batshit than she was the time before.
Yeah.
So love is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And as we learned, love gone bad can get really crazy.
Very traumatic.
Yeah. So hopefully to everyone out there, your love stays good and you don't have to go through anything we talked about tonight.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a perfect time to say Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Absolutely.
So thanks again for listening. This is Love Gone Bad on the Weekly Horoscope. I'm Jerry. That's Matt. And we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Happy holidays, everyone.
Your Weekly Horoscope with Jerry and Matt.